Hey HCAC Youth, welcome back to our YouTube channel.
All right, this week we're going to cover two chapters, Revelation 13 and 14. So buckle up. Hopefully this won't be too long. Now, 13 starts a new vision. Remember last week, 12 was a new vision from the beginning vision of Revelation that lasted so long. This is another new vision in 13. And this starts with John or the dragon, depending on your version of the Bible, standing on the shore. I don't think it really matters because John was on the shore anyways, and this is happening on Earth, so he's observing from there. And most likely the dragon is standing on the seashore because he's cast down to the earth in chapter 12. Doesn't matter how it's interpreted, both are probably on the shore, probably not the same shore. So John sees a beast coming out of the water, and this beast has some pretty strange descriptions. And I've seen people who've tried to draw this, and man, it's crazy. Like trying to think of it's almost contradictory the way it's described. So why is it so weird? Like, no, the imagery gets kind of strange in Revelation sometimes, but really? Like, how do you even describe that? Let's look back in Daniel. We looked at Daniel 7 once before, not in a YouTube video, before we started making videos. But we're going to go earlier in Daniel 7 than we did before, starting at the beginning of Daniel 7. So Daniel has a vision, and then in verse 2 it says, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven, churning up the great sea, the Mediterranean. Four great beasts, each different than the others, came up out of the sea. So here's beasts coming out of the sea. The first was like a lion. Here we have our lion. And it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a man, and the heart of a man was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. So there's the bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat your fill of flesh. Now the third beast. After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard. Here's where we get the leopard. And then so on. The fourth beast has iron teeth, crushed, devours, tramples. It has horns, 10 horns. Those are horns. So you can see John's using the language of Daniel's visions to describe these beasts. Now the beasts in Daniel describe earthly kingdoms. So it makes sense that this would be describing an earthly kingdom as well. Now, who gave these kingdoms their authority to oppress God's people? The dragon, who is Satan. So clearly this is saying that these oppressors get their power and authority from Satan. Now, again, we've said it before, I'll say it again. You have telescoping prophecies in the Bible. Telescoping, not as in like you look through a telescope at the stars and it's far distant. Telescoping is like, think of a pirate's spyglass. You have it and you look, and like now you're looking far away. So it's here and it's out here. Telescoping, some people use extendable as another adjective instead of telescoping. So it just means that like it's here and it gets stretched out to there. So telescoping prophecy means it has a near fulfillment and a far away fulfillment. And sometimes there's another fulfillment, like some of the prophecies in the Old Testament got fulfilled in their day, partially, got fulfilled by Jesus' first coming, and there might be another fulfillment in the future, Jesus' second coming, of those same prophecies. So that's where this beast comes in. Now, what was the biggest, scariest, baddest empire at the time that would have come out of the water? Rome. They came across the Mediterranean Sea. They didn't march up and around through the Alps. So most likely John's referring to Rome here. Now, does that mean that there's not a future fulfillment of some other means because that's historical to us? No, that's not what that means. Does that mean that if somebody tells you this is referring to Rome, that means that it can't mean that it's inspired by God? No, of course not. Just because it's a code talking about Rome doesn't mean it doesn't also mean something else in the future. That's not really God's style if you read the rest of the Bible. So, there's a lot of humanistic interpretation of the Bible that says, well, this just means that. So don't be looking for some grand second coming of Christ. That's not what we believe. We believe he's coming back. I believe that there's more to this than just talking about Rome. But it's important for us to look and think about Rome with regards to these prophecies. Now, the beast was blasphemous. Rome declared itself to be like the most civilized, most important place on earth. And the rulers of Rome declared themselves either to be sons of God or God, a God. They demanded worship. There was people who worshipped pretty much only the Roman emperor. They had a cult that worshipped them. So that's pretty blasphemous. If we go by the definition of blasphemy being claiming something untrue about God, or claiming that you are God, which is untrue about God, then this is horribly blasphemous. So Rome blasphemes, the beast blasphemes. The beast gets its authority from Satan. The beast oppresses God's people. Rome oppressed God's people. When this was written, Rome was in the process of oppressing God's people. And, they would go on to do even harsher oppressions of Christians after the book of Revelation was written and distributed. So it's pretty clear this description fits Rome. Now we have a second beast that comes out of the ground. And a common interpretation of this is that it's the local authorities in the east being the Roman province of Asia, which is modern-day Turkey, and the area around Palestine. Now, not all of this area was conquered militarily. We think about Rome with their legions and the gladius sword and the javelin and all of their weaponry and armor. They didn't always have to use it. Sometimes they used soft political power to get what they want. So they used their influence to slowly take over areas until they were just part of Rome. And that happened in a lot of places where John was writing the 7 letters to in the province of Asia. So these people had a lot to lose if Rome was injured or hurt. They had a lot to gain from their relationship with Rome. And some of the imperial cult was there too. So in the first couple hundred years of the church, a lot of the persecutions that Rome perpetrated against the Christians didn't come from the emperor. They came from the locals. Now, even if the emperor said it was okay to persecute Christians, even if the emperor stated that he wanted Christians to be persecuted, it usually wasn't the emperor carrying them out. It was the local authorities. Some local authorities were more sympathetic to Christians. Some hated Christians, and they were the ones who convinced the emperor to persecute them in the first place. So when we look here, it makes sense that this would be the beast they're talking about. Now again, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have another meaning. Now we come to a very contentious point in the book of Revelation and in the chapter 13, the number 666. Even just saying that strikes fear into some people's hearts. The mark of the beast. Well, this has many interpretations. Again, like a lot of things in the book of Revelation. Now, in Greek and Hebrew, they use letters for numbers. And sometimes they would add up those numbers to come up with a number that meant some word. So if you've ever used an old like Nokia cell phone and had to text somebody, and you have to hit like 333, 1155555, or to get it to type the text. Yeah, probably none of you are that old that would remember that. That are listening to this. But or if you use a landline, you still have that like 1-800 numbers where they give you a word and you're like, and you have to find the letters and type it in. Similar kind of thing, but with the whole language. So the theory on this goes that if you add up the letters in the Emperor Nero's name, it's usually with Nero, that you come up with 666. Well, it's not as clear cut as people who believe that want you to think. Could that be an interpretation? Of course. That could be what John was meaning. But it's not as if you just add up those letters. You add up the letters in a nickname that some people may have called Nero somewhere, and you get 666, taking into account some other things. It's not like you put in Nero's name in Greek into this formula and out pops 666. More likely is that it has a different meaning. Now, all the numbers we've looked at in the book of Revelation have meanings. You keep coming up with the number 7, number 3.5, 10,000. We talked about a lot of these already, what their meanings are. 7 has to do with God, completeness. 6 is less than 7. Shocking. First grade math. Well, pre-first grade math. All right, 6 is less than 7, less than perfect. Maybe even evil, falls short of the glory of God. Romans tells us for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Well, 6 falls short of 7. 3 6s together. Well, where do we see 3 7s together? The Father, Son, the Holy Spirit? Could this be an evil trinity? The dragon, the great beast, and the other beast? Well, or even the false prophet later could be one of those 3. That's a probably better interpretation than trying to add up letters and saying that, oh, well, because the beast is Rome, then obviously the 666 is Nero. Well, I tend to think that it's just an evil trinity. It's showing that this evil falls short of God's glory. Now, the mark of the beast, again, contentious. There's people with conspiracy theories about microchips and barcodes in people's hands and foreheads, and you won't be allowed to buy or trade. People are afraid of that with the coronavirus, that you'll get some kind of physical mark on your arm or your forehead to show that either you've had it or you've been immunized. So then you'll be allowed back out in public without a mask on. Well, you can see I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat. I'm not saying that these people are absolutely wrong. I agree that there's serious concerns with those things. Is that the mark of the beast? Maybe. Probably not. I don't know what the mark of the beast is going to look like, what it's going to be, but I do know this. The broader application, the more pressing application for us is this. Rome forced people to sacrifice to their gods. Rome forced people to sacrifice to the cult of the emperor. And most of the Christian martyrs in the early church were martyred because they refused to sacrifice to the emperor. Our culture believes things that go against Scripture, that are blasphemous, that are wrong. We believe, not we as Christians, our society, we, broader, believes horrible things about life and when it begins and what you can do to preborn babies and if that's okay or not. Our society believes things about relationships that are sinful and not honoring to God. And as a Christian, if you speak out against those, you get canceled. This cancel culture that we have now, where it's the same as the soft power of Rome. Play by our rules and you're fine. Don't play by our rules and you get smacked. So what are those things in our culture that you have to play by the rules or you get smacked? I'll leave that up to you to think about until Friday night when we discuss it. That's what the main point I want to take away from this is. I don't want to conjecture what the mark of the beast might be. I don't want to conjecture when a physical beast is going to crawl out of the Mediterranean Sea or whether or not that really is going to happen. Look, I think the Bible shows us the heart of God. And God's heart here is don't pollute yourself with the mark of the beast. Don't do it. Don't allow yourself to follow what looks like the easy path. You know, Jesus said broad and easy is the path that leads to destruction, but narrow is the path that leads to salvation. If you take it, sometimes it seems easy to just go along with what the people around you want, even when you know it's wrong, because you don't want to get canceled. You don't want your channel to be demonetized. Not that this is monetized. You don't want your you don't want to get a bad grade because a professor in college is an atheist, and if you let him know you're a Christian, you'll get a bad grade. Look, I got a bad grade in a class purely because I was more conservative than the professor. It happens. You just have to learn to deal with it and persevere. And that takes us into chapter 14. Chapter 14 begins with a celebration of the Lamb's victory. Again, we have this already and not yet. Jesus has won. The fate of Satan is sealed. Remember we talked about he knows he's backed into a corner. He's like a wounded animal. He's dangerous because of that. But Jesus has already won. But yet, that fullness is yet to come. Just like a telescoping prophecy. Then we have angels proclaiming the good news so that nobody is guiltless. Everybody has a chance to hear it. Everybody here knows. Then we have a celebration of Babylon the Great falling. We'll talk more about that next week, or 2 weeks technically. More about that later. And then the harvest of earth. We have 2 harvests. One, a good harvest a week, and the second, a harvest of grapes that are treaded out and filled up God's wrath. Now, if you know the words of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. That imagery comes from this in the book of Revelation. God's wrath is coming. We'll see that more in the coming chapters. The biggest thing, like I said, I want you to take away from this is there's things that our society wants you to believe, wants you to say, wants you to do, things that they don't want you to say and do. And if you don't listen, they're going to be upset with you. We have to learn to follow Christ. We have to choose to follow Christ, even when it's costly, even when it has consequences. Look, the people here, they're not marked with the mark of the beast. They can't buy, trade, sell. That's some serious consequences. But more serious are the eternal consequences of being marked with the mark of the beast. We can't give in. We can't take the easy way out. All right. We'll talk more about this Friday night. We'll talk more about how do we live in times like this? How do we deal with those around us telling us that everything this book stands for is wrong, or calling it hate speech, calling it hateful language? It's not. This is God's love story to us. Are there things in here that go against our culture? Oh yeah, you better believe it. But as a famous pastor says, if I read the Bible and I see that I disagree with it, I assume that I'm wrong, not that it's wrong. If we look at our culture and it disagrees with what God says, we should think that God's right, not Hollywood, not Washington, D.C., not the influencers in New York City, not Instagram, not Facebook, not whoever it is who's telling you that God and the Bible are wrong. We need to learn to listen to God. All right. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you Friday night for a discussion. Next week, no video. I'm on vacation. I'm going to get some camping in. Anxious to get out after all this coronavirus. Don't worry, I'm taking my mask and I'm going to be careful around other people. All right. See you Friday night.
Wash your dirty hands. Wear a mask if you're going to go outside. And ring that bell.